freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth. The price for this freedom at times has been high, but we have never been unwilling to pay that price. Those who say that we're in a time when there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look. The sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery, with its row upon row of simple white markers bearing crosses or stars of David, they add up to only a tiny fraction of the price that has been paid for our freedom.
My name is Staff Sergeant Shilo Harris, retired United States Army. I joined the military after 9/11/2001, when our nation was attacked in one of the most heinous attacks in history. We lost almost 4,000 innocent lives in a matter of hours. I felt like it was my calling and my duty to serve my nation. My injuries and my scars are a gift. I feel like God's given me tools to serve my community better. I better do a mic check. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I forgot to turn on my microphone before I came in here. We've had a fast-paced day. We've had a beautiful day, though. And again, as I've shared with many audiences before you, I'm so very proud to be here. And I thank you for coming to the presentation tonight. I want to start by telling you that some of the things that I say tonight might be hard to hear. I also want to share with you that some of the things that I share with you are going to be funny. They're intended to be funny. If you're the only one laughing, you probably got a dark sense of humor, and that's okay. But we're going to have fun tonight, and then when you leave here tonight, I pray that you are walking out with tools in your tool bag to help you or help somebody. But more importantly, we just want you to feel good about being here and being a part of this group. So thank you very much for being here. I'd like to introduce my wife, Jamie.
Thank you very much for allowing us to be here. I will tell you that this country is absolutely breathtaking. The people are wonderful, and we are so honored and privileged that you invited us here, and you are here to celebrate life itself.
So before I get started, I want to ask, how many of you are veterano? Go ahead, raise your hand up high if you can. Thank you. Thank you so much for your service to your nation and to the communities and to your families. Thank you. So could we give our veterans a round of applause?
Amen.
So before I get into the main story, I got to tell you a side story. Now I want to loosen you up a little bit, okay? All right. So I grew up in West Texas, which, you know, Texas is a big state, and it seems like we have a little bit of everything. Like we've got the woodlands over here, we've got the coastal down south, and then we've got some, I don't want to say mountains, but, you know, we got some decent-sized hills. We call it the hill country. And then we have our desert, and that's where I grew up, was in the desert, which I guess that was good preparation for me going to Kuwait and Iraq. Now, I get invited back home quite a bit to West Texas, and as a burn survivor, I have to be really careful with the heat and the sun because I have a hard time regulating my body temperature. These scars, it feels like wearing a leather jacket all the time. So as you see, we got a fan up here in the front to kind of help me keep cool. And really and truly, if I get overheated, I can't think properly. I'll just go blank. Sometimes I'll just have to look at her and be like, I've got to gain my thoughts. I apologize. But I kind of put her on the spot at times just because I'll lose track. So anyway, I get invited to an event one time, and being from Texas, I got the big belt buckle. I got the boots. I didn't wear them tonight because I thought I would represent our veteran community that we have here in the audience by me wearing my uniform and my decorations. But on my way out to this event, I realized it was going to be hot, so I wanted to get a cowboy hat to complement my outfit and to keep the sun off of me. Well, as I'm in the store, I tell the little girl, I said, I don't know what size my head is because of my injuries, but let's start small and work our way up. So she brings over a couple of hats. Now, I think that she believed she was a really good girl and could size up my head really easy. So she brought the two hats, right? But she did what I asked. She brought a small hat, and I grabbed it and I set it on my head, and it just barely sat on the crown of my head. Well, clearly that one wasn't it, right? So I pulled it off, and I was going to grab the other one, but she went ahead and set it up on my head. Well, she set it up there and popped it down. When she did, both my ears popped off. They popped off, and they're bouncing around on the floor because they're made of rubber, right? Come on, that's funny. Okay, that's better. All right, see, I told you I had to loosen you guys up. Is it making y'all feel weird that I'm holding my ears? All right, so no kidding. This is a true story. So my ears are bouncing around on the floor, and I scrambled to get them. And I went through my recovery in San Antonio, Texas. San Antonio has the best burn unit in the world. I mean, they take burn patients from all over the world in some cases, but definitely from all over the United States, because that's what they do. They treat some of the most significant burn patients and put them back on their feet and get them out there. Well, with that being said, San Antonio's kind of used to seeing this, right? Well, there I am in West Texas. They're not used to seeing this. So I'm bent over, and I'm about to pick up my ears, and then I start thinking, oh, wait. And I look up, and the little girl is like, I scared her, and I didn't mean to. But anyway, I grabbed my ears, and I put them on, and I realized I probably looked even worse, too. I looked like a hot mess, right? Hot mess. So I get myself put back together, and I didn't have any good catchphrases. I didn't know how to ease that moment up because I hadn't had my ears very long. I've only had them for like 2 weeks. And I just, okay, do y'all know Dumbo, the elephant? That's what I felt like. Because this way, I'm like really aerodynamic. I had to walk in slow motion a couple of times today when I wasn't wearing my ears. You know what I mean? It's like all this is like a bunch of wind drag. So anyway, I didn't have any good catchphrases. The only thing I could think of was, oh, I bet that happens a lot to you, huh? She wasn't having it. So eventually, I didn't get the hat. As a matter of fact, I just kind of left, and I was like, thank you, but... Well, I get to my event, and I'm telling my friends, one's a veteran, the other one is a preacher or a minister. And I would have thought the veteran would be the one jabbing at me, giving me a hard time, but he was the one patting me on the back. But I looked over at the preacher, and he goes, dude, you could have got a free hat. I was like, what? And he said, when your ears fell off, you should have grabbed your head and went, ah! But I totally missed it. I didn't get the free hat, but I got us all loosened up, didn't I? Okay, very good. Again, I want to remind you that some of the things I say tonight are going to be hard. You know, we're not going to take you on a really, really dark path. I'm so glad that you're here, and I want you to feel a sense of what some of your men and women may go through on the battlefield and how we can help them integrate back home and into our communities. Because I can tell you from experience, and from some of the men and women that I've met here in only a couple of days, you have some of the most amazing, passionate men and women put on that uniform. And unfortunately, sometimes they come home injured, or they don't come home at all. And I believe passionately that it's the communities, it's the families, it's our countries that need to welcome us home and make us feel whole again. Because we still have a lot to offer, even if you come home with scars. Scars that you can see. Scars that you can't see. Scars that you can't see. It's all of our jobs to make sure that nobody commits suicide. Do we agree?
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Now, like many of your veterans and many of our veterans back home, I felt like I joined for the right reasons. I joined after 9/11/2001, which was one of the biggest terror attacks in history. In America, we lost almost 4,000 innocent lives in a matter of hours. In one of the worst coordinated attacks in history in itself, not just American history. I felt like it was my calling, my duty, to go out there and serve my nation. The funny thing was I was still 27 years old. I didn't think that I'd be able to handle it, like some of the kids that was joining. But I excelled. I did great. But before that, I came from a family of veterans, and I knew I wanted to join. So I did what a lot of young men and young women do. I contacted my dad. My dad, he was 82nd Airborne, Army infantry guy, jumped out of planes. He was a paratrooper. So I decided that I wanted to call him and find out what he recommended. Now, for our veterans that are here, how many of you are ground forces? Ground forces? Yeah? Yeah? How many Air Force? Air Corps? No? Special Operations? Couple? Thank you.
National Guard.
Hmm?
National Guard.
National Guard? Okay, National Guard. Navy? Anybody Navy?
My father was
Okay.
Army.
All right. Well, my dad, he said, join the Air Force. He said, it's so much better. It's not as hard as the Army. So he wanted me to try to find a career. He didn't want me to be on the ground like I wanted to be. But anyway, so my dad, he tells me to join the Air Force. I tried to join the Air Force, but they didn't want to take me. For one, because I was 27 years old, I wasn't as young as I was, fresh out of high school or out of college. And he had a bunch of college students that wanted to join them at the Air Force. So I figured, you know what, that's okay. I was a little upset, a little discouraged, but I was still determined. So I was going to go door to door until somebody took me. When I walked out, I didn't have to go very far because the Army or ground force recruiter was there waiting on me. He's like leaned up against the wall like this. I said, you waiting on me? He goes, yes, sir. I was like, all right, let's do it. So I went in there. I knew what I was getting into. I joined the United States Cavalry. I wanted boots on the ground and a rifle in my hand. And I wanted to be able to do my part. And I got my wish. Now, as I said, it was kind of an easy decision for me to want to be on the ground. I grew up on stories from my father and my grandfather. These guys they're my heroes. They taught me so much about patriotism and just service in general. Now, I wanted to show you these pictures because I wanted you to see what I looked like before I got hurt. No, the red shirt. The one in the red shirt. That's what I looked like before I got hurt. Why does everybody laugh when I say that? But yeah, these guys. So my dad, he was a paratrooper. My grandfather, he was in the Navy first, but then he came over to the Army and ultimately retired out of the military. He spent a full career. So I got about 8 years in, and I loved it. I did. I miss it still. That was over 10 years. Over 10 years since I've been hurt. It was really hard to, accept getting out of the military, which I find that happens a lot with just about any veteran. So anyway, I said I wanted boots on the ground and a rifle in my hand. Well, I got my wish. I got sent to Iraq. My first duty station was in Schweinfurt, Germany. We deployed out of there with the Big Red 1, or the 1st Infantry Division. and we were mechanized on that deployment. Mechanized means we were tanks, Bradleys, heavy equipment, and we got to see a lot of combat that deployment. We were kicking in doors, arresting bad guys, and doing all kinds of high-speed stuff, which was very fulfilling for me in a way. You know, it was everything that I was hoping the military would be. You know, we was finding caches of weapons. You know, we did have some good camaraderie out there. Now, funny thing is, though, it's thrilling. It's very thrilling to get in a gunfight. You know, it's very thrilling to take down a bad guy and arrest him. It's thrilling to experience an explosion and live through it. But when you get back to your room, after you get done bumping chests and high-fiving your buddies, you realize your mortality. You realize, I could have lost my life today. And it changes you. It changes you as a person. I experienced a lot of that, and enough of that to learn how to be careful and appreciate my life, which was a good lead-in for my second deployment. My second deployment, I went with some very young men also that wanted to do the right thing, and I think my age and my maturity helped me help them. Now, this deployment, even though this one was mostly in Baghdad, the other one, we was all over Iraq. You know, we got called to support anytime they needed us in an area for whatever reason. Now, the second deployment was with the 10th Mountain Division out of Fort Drum, New York, instead of Germany. So I was back in the States and then deployed to Iraq. And again, like I said a moment ago, this time I was primarily in Baghdad, or working the southern areas of Baghdad. We was also focused on more of the humanitarian stuff. Now, when I say humanitarian, I mean, you know, we were delivering medical supplies, we were escorting medical teams, we were helping rebuild schools, training police officers, training the military, which was really good. I got to see it full circle. You know, I got to see both sides of the war. Now, the funny thing is, though, is even though we was doing all this humanitarian stuff, we were still getting in gunfights, having to dodge IEDs or roadside bombs. We were still doing the police-style work. Now, some of the roads that we had to travel up and down in that area, it was by far the worst that I had seen from both deployments. We was down in the southern region. A lot of people referred to it as the Sunni Triangle. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but that was a lot of what we seen on the news. It was so hostile. There was literally roadside bombs or IEDs going off almost every day. And we was getting in gunfights every day for sure. But the sad thing was about being in Baghdad is you really couldn't get into a fight with them. They'd take some pop shots and then they'd jump a few roofs and you'd lose track of them. It was always really hard to engage the enemy. So it made it very frustrating for us. And then of course working out in the country, you know, in the rural farming areas, we had the roadside bombs to contend with more. And that made it very frustrating because you wouldn't see those guys either. Now, on February 19th, 2007, on one of the worst roads that I can remember, there was holes every 15 to 20 meters on the road. Some of them took up the entire width of the road. Some of them looked as big as vehicles. There was craters there. And we knew right away when we first started working in that area, they weren't trying to hurt us. They were trying to kill us. We got this call on February 19th to investigate a possible bomb or IED. As we were driving over there, I was the third truck in the convoy, and my Humvee literally erupted. I had 3 of the 4 Humvee doors blown off. The entire top of the Humvee was blown off. I was knocked unconscious. They estimated the bomb at 700 pounds of explosives. In that little tiny truck. Now, I want to know, how did anybody survive? Unfortunately, I lost 3 friends that day. I lost my gunner, my 2 dismounts, I was the truck commander. My driver and I were the only two that survived the blast. Now, this is something that I want to share especially with you. Now, I know that we have some veterans in the audience, and I know that they'll agree with me when I say this. As veterans, we get called things. Sometimes the word is hero. Sometimes the word is savior or whatever. And I'm sure there's other words that they use for us, but I don't focus on those. And I don't even consider myself a hero, and I know that the veterans in this room may not either. But I don't want to discourage you from saying it. You should tell your veterans that they're heroes. You know why? Because you might actually save their life. There might be somebody in a very deep, dark hole of depression that may not know that you appreciate them and their service. And if you show 1 ounce of appreciation, you could save that person's life. And as far as I'm concerned, our heroes are the men and women that give everything for our nation. But I have heard some amazing stories of bravery. These that give everything for their flag, whatever your flag is, they're our finest. As I mentioned, I was knocked unconscious. Once I woke up, being the truck commander, I knew I needed to call up a radio report. So that was the first thing I did. I started trying to key the hand mic because I still had it in my hand. Usually when we was driving, I'd keep the hand mic right next to my head, so that way if something happened, I could be quick to let people know. I mean, that's just what we did. Well, I started keying the mic. It was just reflex. And I wasn't hearing anything, so I looked over, and the cable was burnt completely off the hand mic. Well, as I started pushing on the door, I realized that my arm felt funny, and the door wasn't moving yet. Well, I tried to find out why my arm felt funny, and at this point, I realized I had taken a hit. I had no idea how bad I was, and I started noticing that I could barely see. It was like I was looking through straws. So I knew I'd taken a hit, but again, I had no idea. But I remember looking at this arm, and I could see that my uniform was literally melted into my skin. And I kept thinking, that's gotta hurt. But it wasn't hurting yet, so I continued to push on the door. Now this is where I believe in divine intervention. I believe that the Lord was there that day. I believe that God was there to help me. I believe that God has a purpose. Because I don't think I should have been able to kick myself out of that Humvee. You see, right there, that's where that IED went off. Pretty much right behind the driver's seat. How did I survive that? Now, when that IED went off, it went off pretty much center of the vehicle. Lifted the vehicle in there, and when it came down, it had embedded in all that dirt and that asphalt. The only door left on the vehicle, right? And it's like 400 or 500 pounds, maybe more, I'm not sure. But I know I shouldn't have been able to get out of that vehicle. However, I managed to get out. I'm standing there and I'm taking in all this carnage and the debris and the smoke and the smell. Start seeing everybody moving around real fast. So I start trying to take charge because it looked chaotic. And as a non-commissioned officer, I started trying to bark orders. Hey, start pulling security over there. Hey, y'all keep working on Adam. Adam was my driver. Now, all of a sudden, I get my attention redirected over here because one of my buddies was waving at me. And I didn't know why he was waving at me, and I could see his mouth moving, but I wasn't hearing anything. So I felt my leg start burning. I looked down, and the flames licked my face. But my body armor was on fire, and the material was melting and running down my leg. So I knew I needed to get my body armor off, get it on the ground, and I get that fire put out, but now I'm completely exposed. And on a second look, I realized that I had two problems. One, yes, my body armor was on fire, and two, it was my ammo pouches that were on fire. So I had 200 bullets that was about to start cooking off on me. Anyway, thank goodness again, it got past that. I looked back to see what my buddy wanted over here, and he wasn't there. As I looked again, he came up behind me and grabbed me and started shielding me with his body and started trying to get me away from that vehicle and get me in cover. When our bodies made contact, I heard it for the first time. Pop and a zing. Pop and a zing. As bullets zipping all around me. And I didn't realize it because I couldn't hear before he hit me. As we're moving away, I'm thinking to myself, well, great, now they're shooting at me. But what was actually happening is the bullets inside my truck, the truck that I was standing beside with no body armor and no anything, the bullets were cooking off and zipping all around me. With that being said, that's the kind of men and women that you have serving in your military as well. The ones that are willing to put themselves in harm's way to take care of those people that are most precious to them. He gets me over there, lays me on the ground, and starts getting me prepared for the medevac. And I can hear the helicopter coming in. I mean, it seemed like it was quick. So that's good. But they're trying to get me stabilized. One of my roommates come over, and when I say he's trying to get me stabilized, I'm still thinking, it's okay, I got this, I still had no idea how injured I was. Now, we're having this conversation, me and my roommate, my buddy, and whatever we're saying, it all fades away. It just goes away. And then all of a sudden, it's like a big screen. I can see my reflection in his glasses. I can see that my face is charred black, my hair's gone, my ears were gone, my nose was gone. I had blood running out of my nose, my mouth, my eyes, my ears. And I remember thinking, Lord, that can't be me. Please don't let that be me. Whatever was happening started causing me to go into shock. They didn't know why I was upset, but they started pushing him away, trying to get me calmed down. As they were pushing him away, he looked back at me and lifted his glasses, and I could literally see the fear in his eyes. I could see that he was looking at me going, oh my God. And I knew at that moment that it was real. I started trying to calm myself down. Again, I think my age and my maturity helped me. I think I was 32 at this time. I started trying to calm myself down, start trying to reassess, okay, just how bad is it, Shilo? And I remember, I told you this arm was burnt. I knew it was burnt, but I checked it again, and I knew this side felt funny, and I remember looking at this hand. And I know y'all are going to think this is a little selfish of me, but I was thinking, I better get a day off for this. At least one day off. You don't get a lot of days off in combat. Sorry. Go on, that's funny. Y'all can laugh. All right, so anyway, I knew that my driver was okay. He was there beside me, and we was talking off and on. We were trying to find out where our friends were. And we had asked a couple of times, where's our friends? Where's our buddies? I kept asking, where's my soldiers? And it's either nobody knew or nobody would tell me. We get on the helicopter, same thing. It's just me and him. We get into the hospital in Baghdad, and I keep asking. Nobody knows or nobody will tell us. He goes one direction, I go the other. I'm laying in the operating room, and all these nurses and doctors are working on me, and they're cutting my clothes off, and they're starting to scrub me, trying to get all that stuff off. Anyway, it's hurting. I can feel the IVs, and I just asked the doctor, I said, please, tell me where my friends are. He said, you'll find out in a couple of months. A couple of months. I had no idea what that meant. But at that moment, I was medically induced in a coma that I spent the next 48 to 50 days in. And everything else was a blur. But I wanted to point these out here. Now, what we do is when you get injured on the battlefield, pretty much every soldier that is injured with the coalition forces goes through Landstuhl. Landstuhl, Germany. It's military ran. You go through there, and then you go where you need to go. Your specialty hospital, your duty station, your country. Because we have a lot of coalition forces that's helped us with the war on terror. As a matter of fact, I think the Ukraine had helped us with Afghanistan and maybe even Iraq. I'm not sure. Yeah? Yeah. So I know that we've had a lot of coalition forces and we've had a lot of ties. Anyway, that's a picture of the helicopters. These are guys coming home, either to the United States or being unloaded in Germany. Now, when you get to launch school, there's only like a 1 or 2 day turnaround. You know, they don't want you there very long. They want to be able to get you back home. They want to be able to get you back to your duty station. You know, not to say that you're not going to have a recovery. They want you to recover, but they want you to be able to do it stateside, by your family, with the ones that love you and care about you. I was there for almost 5 days because they couldn't stabilize me. I had developed double pneumonia, which is pretty common for burn survivors because of the burn inhalation. You know, the smoke goes into your lungs and causes damage, and then you usually end up with pneumonia. I had infections. I mean, I had swelling. They almost had to amputate my arm. I mean, you name it. There was so many things happen. But they eventually had to send a burn team from San Antonio. Something I mentioned to you before. They have the best burn unit in the world. They sent that team to Germany, and they had me stabilized in like a day, half a day, and ready for evacuation back to the United States. On the descent into San Antonio, I quit. I quit breathing. I started fighting the machines. Essentially, I died. They brought me back and bagged me, manually airbagged me, all the way on the ground, all the way to the hospital, and got me on the machines. They said the minute that they got me on the machines, the RT tech quit. He just collapsed. That's a picture, that's actually a picture of me trying to be funny over there. Oh, there it is. That was me trying to smile. Even with all that going on, I'm like, ah. There's my children, some of them anyway. Glenn wasn't born at the time. And then there's the RT tech. That's the respiratory tech that's helped save my life that day. So, anyway, you know, as I said, I spent 48 days in a coma. And when I say 48 to 50, you know, I was so heavily medicated that I don't even really remember coming out of a coma. You know, I mean, the medicine, it just kept me groggy, you know, for months. I mean, it's like I don't really have a timeline of a lot of things that happened in my life in that time. But every journey begins with a cornerstone or something that sticks out the most in your mind. Now, the one that sticks out the most to me is the day that they came in and they said, Sergeant Harris, today we want you to take 10 steps. I was thinking, 10 steps? I was like, man, I'm going to own this hospital. I was all cocky about it, you know. Just getting out of bed was so excruciating. I didn't want to do it. Once I was up, I had 3 little shuffles. And I was completely wiped out.
Take care of it.
Sorry. I had an allergy attack. My apologies. Anyway, I had those 3 little shuffles, and I had to lay back down in that bed. When I laid down in that bed, I started pity party. I started feeling sorry for myself. I didn't want to do it. It was too painful. Didn't think I could do it. So I tried to quit before I even started. In that time frame, there was, in about 4 days, there were several people coming in and out of my room. Physical therapists trying to drag me along, and I'd do a lot of the things that they wanted me to do, but I wasn't in it 100%. Again, I didn't want to do it. at some point in those 3 or 4 days, something clicked. I realized that if I wanted to get better, and if I wanted to reach my full potential, I was going to have to do the work. I was going to have to do it. Nobody could do it for me. And I had to quit feeling sorry for myself. If I wanted to be the father that I was meant to be, the father that I could be, I had to pick myself up and do it. So I did. I turned those 3 steps into 10 steps. 10 steps to 20. 20 to 50. I'm not going to say it was easy. It wasn't easy. It was hard. But each day I tried to set new goals and reach them and achieve them. Now, as a matter of fact, I got to doing so well that I snuck out of my hospital room one day. I couldn't even use my hands yet, but I got to walking around a little bit here and there. And I was dragging my IV with me, and I snuck out and went down to Burger King, and I was going to get me a cheeseburger. This is a true story. So, anyway, it's like when you're deployed, you eat horrible food. We don't want the military to know that, though, right? But, we eat food that's probably designed to never go bad, and I wanted a cheeseburger. So I'm trying to get down there and get that cheeseburger, and I'm in line, and I tell the girl, I said I want a Whopper, and anyway, she looks at me and she sees that I can't use my hands, and she goes, "What are you gonna do with it, honey?" And I was like, I don't know. My first thought was like, if I could just get it in front of me, Anyway, I didn't even get the burger ordered or make the conversation much further, and I got caught. I heard, "Sergeant Harris, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, crap." Trying to get out of there. But I got caught. So, if I'd have had my ears in, she probably would have grabbed my ear and took me all the way back to my room. But fortunately, I didn't have ears. But yeah, I've had a good recovery, as you can see. I've come across some of the most amazing people. And I had 50, when I decided to retire out of the military, which was in 2010, I had about 50-something surgeries. And I decided I'm done. 3 years, just this roller coaster. Surgery, heal. And I was done. So I decided to get out, start living life, try to, I guess you could say, find a balance in my life. And then figure out if I wanted to do another surgery. Well, a couple of years after retiring out of the military, I was driving down the interstate in San Antonio, and I got rear-ended by a semi-truck, or a big truck. And it crippled me again. I thought that I was living life pretty good and doing pretty good, and then boom, here I was, back in a recovery state. I had to be on pain pills for so long that I was addicted to them. Not because I really wanted to be addicted or wanted the pills. It was I had to be on them for so long because of the healing and the surgeries. But then naturally, I was on them so long, I became addicted. And then the minute I realized I was addicted, I started fighting to get off of them. And then now this. Here I was, back in a recovery state, back with all this pain, back on all these meds. And again, I didn't want to do it. I was thinking, really? Is this my life? Just one big recovery after another? I became depressed. I was drinking. I was taking my pills. And I hit bottom. I became suicidal. I was ready to quit. I'm glad I didn't. I'm so glad that I didn't. There was something that brought me back. You have to find what's important in your life to keep you from doing something like that. And I was very fortunate that I had a house full of kids. And I started thinking about what kind of legacy is that going to be for my children? What am I leaving my children to remember me by? I was able to put it down, and I was already in the process of working on the book, Still Will, which, it was writing that book, I knew I had to do it. I knew I had to do it because I wanted to share my successes. And then there I was in that deep, dark pit, So I decided, you know what? I have to crawl out of this one too. I decided I was going to start going out and being active in the community again. I went to a veteran event, and then I met another bald guy. How many of you are bald? No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to. So she says this is my solar panel of love. So I met this doctor right here. He's a chiropractor. Does everybody know what a chiropractor is? He's somebody that uses joints. It doesn't use a lot of medicines and stuff like that. They rely on natural solutions to try to put you back in alignment. As a matter of fact, the America House offers a workshop with a doctor that I met last night that does, it's not chiropractic, but it's like stretching and it's to help put your body back in alignment naturally. And I can tell you, when he worked on me, and it took him a little bit to talk me into it, because I had seen another doctor, and the other doctor, he wanted to do surgery on me. And he said, man, your neck and your back are so bad that you have to have surgery. Now, after having 50 to 60 surgeries, that was the last thing I wanted to hear. I met this guy, and he said, here, let me give you an adjustment. Let me work on you. And I was like, oh, I don't know. My doctor said no. And he said, well, I've been a doctor for almost 30 years. And he said, and by the way, I have insurance. And I said, oh, okay, well, in that case. So he finally worked on me, and I'm so glad that he did. Because that man saved my life. He saved my life at a different phase of recovery, a different stage. He came at that right time and helped me put my life back on track. I was able to get off my medication. I was able to quit drinking. I drink socially now. So if y'all see me later, maybe we can have a drink. No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. Probably not a good joke. But anyway, he put me back on track. And even to this day, the only medication I take is for blood pressure. And she says it's because I eat too much barbecue and too many sweets. Maybe, I don't know. Probably. But I've made changes in my diet and so many other things. But we'll show some more of that in a moment. Well, anyway, so this guy, he adjusts me one time. Well, I take that back. The event was like 3 or 4 days. Every time I walk by his table, he's like, dude, hop up here. He'd work on me, adjust me. And when I left that event, I felt hope. I felt like I can do this. Well, I came home, and we were friends then before she decided she loved me. And I came home, and I was like, oh my gosh, Jamie, have you ever tried chiropractic care? And she had this crazy look on her face, and then she said,
of course I've heard of chiropractic care. I've been living with chiropractic care all of my life. Consider myself a boundless person. There are no limitations in life. My mother is what I call a huppie, a hippie-yuppie. In other words, she's hippie, but very classy about it. She taught me at a young age to live life freely, to live for what you believe in. Don't follow the crowd. Stand up for what you believe in. I adopted 2 wonderful children. My son is going to be 30 this year. Very scary. My daughter just got engaged this year. And I was the first person in my family to earn a college degree, eventually getting a master's degree in counseling. I believe life, again, has no limitations. I love adventure. I love hiking, kayaking. I don't really love surfing, but I can surf.
I love surfing.
He does love surfing, and he's good at it. It's because he's aerodynamic. The ears don't slow him down. Skydiving, scuba diving. I love all of that. But what I love more than anything is being the caregiver and the sweetheart of Shilo. Every day we have an adventure in every way possible. There are ups, there are downs, there is good, and there is bad. There's never a dull moment in our life. I can promise you that. He's been through a lot. I've been through a lot. I learned at a very young age that you have to remember your body, your mind, and your spirit. But what we all forget is there's one key factor that doesn't work or doesn't allow these to work unless our heart works. If our heart isn't in it, we aren't living. And the way that we all feel our body, mind, spirit, and heart functioning well is when we have a support system, a tribe. Military service men and women, they belong to a special tribe. They're soldiers. They're survivors of a very special and unique group. They fight for our freedoms. But we all have our own tribes. If you're a writer, you tend to familiarize yourself with other writers. If you're a journalist, you familiarize yourself with other journalists. But as moms, we have our own tribe. We can talk about being a mom, the good stories, the bad stories. If we're wives, we can talk about it. When you're a veteran and you've been through combat, you have to find people who you can bring to your tribe to help you be better, to help you survive and move on. When you're their caregivers, it's the same thing. You have to build your tribe. I learned to build a tribe at a very young age. I had a brother at the age of 8. I wasn't happy about no longer being the only child.
She's still spoiled.
18 months later, my mom had another child. She claimed these were accidents. Clearly they were not accidents because we know how babies are made. When we were on one of our trips, or actually I should say late at night, we got a phone call that my cousin had passed away from SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. My parents decided to load all of us in the car and we traveled 2,500 miles to go to my cousin's funeral. On the way, a man was in his truck. He was towing his snowmobiles. He had his family with him. And a snowstorm caused him to cross the median and eventually hitting us head on. When he hit our vehicle, I experienced death for the first time. I experienced the loss of one of my brothers.
He felt very, very upset, very discouraged that he was in the hospital and not out there on the front line. And I asked him, I said, how'd you get the hernia? I said, did you try to pick up a tank? And he's like, no, but everything in the military is heavy. And that's true, everything is heavy in the military. And that breaks your body down. You know, staying up for long hours out on missions and drinking caffeine and eating sugar and things to stay awake instead of putting you to sleep. Those things take a toll on your life. And then when you get out of the military and you're not working out and you're not as active as you were, if you have those same habits, it can break your health down and break your body down even more. Be aware of what you're taking into your body, but also be aware of what the military may have gone through. So if you know a veteran that's having a hard time, maybe look at their diet or ask them, have you eaten lately? You know, are you drinking too much? You know, try to give them a check-in. Whether they want to answer you or not, it might plant a seed that allows them to start thinking about it.
And as working with the caregivers, I know some caregivers happen to be parents or they happen to be men. It's very important to be in tune, and I'm speaking from the women's side, us as women, we go through hormonal changes every month, when we're pregnant, after giving birth. So we as caregivers have to look at ourselves too. We need to be aware of the stressors we have in life. Once you have a combat survivor come home, you're having to take care of them. And I know Shilo appears to be totally functional and capable, but he has bad days. He has maintenance. The studs get infections all the time, and we have to clean them. His hands, due to the muscles and everything that's happened, we have to work on them. There's therapies at home we have to do on a regular basis. He'll forget about them, and I'll have to remind him. It's my job. I have to look at my emotional check-ins for me. There's a lot I have to do as well, and it's so important. And it's important for me to find support and help. Together, we have to remind each other of things. We have to remind each other about our eating habits. We have to remind each other about our stressors. We have to make sure that we are staying in check to not have an abusive relationship, to not have him feel suicidal. These are all important things in a family dynamics regularly and with somebody with PTS, TBI, moral injury, and survivor guilt.
I don't know about this, but it sounds like she just said that I was high maintenance. Yeah?
I don't know.
Sure
if
what it
there's a
sounded like to me.
I don't know if there's a translation word, but I in the United States, diva.
No. Okay.
So what we recommend for everyone is that you build your own tribe. You look for professionals and friends and family that can be in your tribe and get you through what you need. You have to do it by yourself. No one's going to do it for you. Just like Shilo said, he realized in the hospital it had to be him. Yes, someone helped him discover that. A counselor was talking to him every day just about life. He wasn't counseling him. He just went in and talked to him like a friend. And it was somewhere along the way in those conversations that Shilo realized, I'm the one who has to give through this. Exploring new options in the step, he explored options on how to recover in different techniques and different things. You have to encourage one another, find people who encourage you, and bring them to your tribe. You want freedom, joy, and adventure as well. So build a tribe around you that's going to give that to you. I know both of us try to do it every day in every way possible. This one can be passed. Sorry. Educate yourself. Educate yourself about the options and about yourself. Shilo is not afraid at the doctor's office to ask, why am I doing this? Why are you going to prescribe this? Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, don't be ashamed if you don't understand what the doctor's saying. He went to medical school to know exactly what he's talking about. It's your job to understand that. I mean, if you're going to be putting stuff in your body or you're going to have him working on your body, you need to understand not just what's happening now, but what happens next, and then what happens after that. How long is it going to take? What is this stuff? Where does it come from? It's important that you ask questions. The dumbest question is the question that's never asked.
Very true. Recently, he had a surgery on his studs, and they prescribed him medications afterwards, and I asked, what are all these for? He only needed to take one of them. There was no reason for me to fulfill those other prescriptions. The only one I needed to fill up was the pain medication, and at that point, he was only going to take it for one day. Because I didn't want him to be addicted, and he didn't want to be addicted again. Implement the programs and things that are given to you that you see fit for you. And look for results. If they aren't working, go back and find out what does work. There are many things that we've done, many retreats we've gone to, many things we've read that we've tried. They don't all work because they don't work for us. They might work for somebody else, but they don't work for us. They don't work for him. They don't work for me. So only use the things that you get results from. I just finished an interview with one of your veteran wives, and the people we visited with, there's struggles with your caregivers here. They need support. There is so much this country could do for one another. They look beyond the injured. The injured are survivors. They are not victims. Yes, they're wounded, but they are survivors.
And they're not invalids.
They are not invalids. They're survivors. And that's how they need to be looked at. And their caregivers, whether they're the parents or the wives or the husbands, need help too. They struggle. We struggle very much. We need support. We need to go to the hospitals. We need people to encourage us so that we can encourage them. There's caregiver fatigue. There's a lot that caregivers go through, and they need all the help they can get, just as much as your combat survivors.
Please watch your screen as it's popping up. because we're not going to go over each and every one of them. But these are things that affect, definitely our veterans, but things that can affect our community as well. Almost each and every one of us have some form of adversity at some point. Some of us are fortunate that, we haven't had big stressors or something really big like a bomb going off in your life, and that's good. But for those of you that have, you have to realize how strong you are. Somebody asked me why we named the book Still Will. It's because it took a great amount of will and strength and internal fortitude to push through the things that I had to go through. And I realized just how strong I was. So if you're going through a struggle or something overwhelming in your life, try to check yourself out of it and take an aerial view. Imagine looking down and looking at the dynamics of what is going on in your life. What can you change? What can you take out of that situation that may be causing you all this stress? What can you do in your life that's going to help you move forward to that next better day?
And I'm sure this slide we probably can have on the America House Facebook page, just this slide, so people can look at it and refer back to it in the future. Tools that we have found to be useful throughout the recovery process and even in everyday marriages. These are many tools we use, and these can help your veterans and your caregivers. Little things like daily intentions. When you're depressed and you're down, you don't even want to get out of bed. Having a daily intention. Today, I'm going to brush my teeth. Get up, brush your teeth, go back to bed. But at least you accomplished that one thing that day. The next day, making a bigger daily accomplishment. Pet therapy is a great tool. There are many organizations that train pets, donate pets for people to have pet therapy. Going out into nature. Yoga. The person who does the training here. Another, breathing. There are so many tools and resources we use. I would love to go through each one of the tools and share them with you. There's just not enough time. We could do a whole training just on these tools, and everybody would benefit just in regular life, not just being combat, survivor, and caregiver. Anything you want to add about the tools?
No, that's absolutely right. And of course, if you have questions, a lot of these are used, the terminology is used where you can look it up online. I know that we only have a few minutes. Christiane, how much longer do you think we want to take a few questions? Or?
Yeah, I think we can transition into the question and answer session. So we're going to put the chairs up here. And before we begin, I just want to say, if you're asking a question, you're going to need to speak into the microphone so that the translator can pick it up. And also, let's keep this session to questions only, not comments, so that we can get as many questions to Jamie and Shilo while they're here. So once they get up here, do we have any questions? We'll come around with the microphone.